Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. I'm excited to welcome Cameron Cushman. He is a Montana-based filmmaker, Army veteran, and passionate storyteller. With over 16 years of experience creating documentaries, TV, and branded films, he helps brands and nonprofits, especially veteran-focused ones, craft stories that truly connect. Through his lens and advocacy, Cameron champions mental health, authenticity, and powerful storytelling that leaves a lasting impression. Cameron, thanks so much for being here. It's so great to meet you. This is one of those things that makes me excited because I go out on LinkedIn a lot. I look for, veterans, particularly as a Navy veteran. I always try to connect with as many veterans as possible, and just came across your profile and connected with you. But I'm interested in all of your work. Thank you for being here. And I want to start with Montana. Are you from Montana?
No, Robyn, thanks for having me on the podcast. No, originally from Florida.
Okay.
And how'd we end up in Montana?
Right.
I was stationed, my first duty station was Alaska. I was at Fort Wainwright for 4 years.
Okay.
And I was there from 2010 to 2014 outside of, some training, obviously leaving there. And then I spent 12 months in Afghanistan deployed from Alaska. But when my wife and I got married about halfway through my time in Alaska, and she came up kind of after we left Alaska, she always said, it was one of the most incredible places I think both of us ever could have lived, but it's a very hard place to live in terms of traveling to other places. And in my line of work, it would be outrageously expensive that the client I'd end up having to push onto the client to travel as much as I do. And often it's it just wouldn't be possible really, because I drive for a lot of jobs, and driving from Alaska to the States wouldn't be the funnest. It would be beautiful, but time wise it wouldn't be very good. And so she always said, before we had ever came to Montana, she said, I know that Montana probably would be the next best place for us to go. And so we had actually never really visited Montana throughout any time. When we came down on orders to Fort Hood, Texas. We really fell in love with the state of Texas and the hill country. And then when I medically retired, we moved back to Florida to be closer to family, because I'm from the East Coast of Florida. She's from the West Coast of Florida. And so, we were at least near family to help if anything happened with my health issues. And, and then, I was back into the creative world because I was a creative before I joined the military, and then was directing a TV show for the Outdoor Channel. And then, COVID came around, the world changed, and I kind of lost all freelance world. The media world tumbled, even the outdoor industry, which is, it's really funny to think back on, because the largest boom in the outdoor industry was in 2021. Everybody went outside. People that had never been into the outdoors were going into the outdoors to, to do something. And so much money came into the industry, but, kind of at the start, no one realized that would happen. And so I took a full-time role working for a company out of Missouri, the last place on earth I ever thought I would live. No offense to the Missouri listeners or Midwest listeners at home, but Missouri is hotter than Florida. It is more humid there in the summer than, you don't have the coastal breeze, but you have all the humidity from all the water. And so we lived there for about 2.5 years or so. We bought a homestead there, and we did the homestead thing, 17 acres, goats, sheep, pigs, and the whole ordeal. And it was so amazing. And then I left that company and went back to working for myself. And my wife and I were kind of sitting there like, why are we still living in Missouri if, I'm not tied here. And I had a job to Montana for a nonprofit. Actually, it wasn't a job. I had volunteered. It was like a give back thing I did for a small nonprofit in Montana. And so I came out for that. And right as I was coming into the Bitterroot Valley in Western Montana, I was like, oh, this is it. This is where we're going to move.
Nice.
I called my wife. I was like, we're moving to Montana. And she laughed. She's like, yeah, no, we're not. And I was like, no, no, we are. We are. And she's like, we just bought a house a year ago. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
I had another job out here. I brought her out here for our anniversary. She didn't want to come to Montana for our anniversary. And it was my double-edged way of trying to get her to fall in love with the area, and she did. And so she understood. And so we came up with the plan to, okay, let's make a realistic goal. My realistic goal was like, all right, 3 months. Her realistic goal was 3 years. And we met on the middle of 1 year.
Okay.
The plan was to move here June 1st of 24. We moved here October 1st of 23. And
Yeah.
so we did move within 3 months. A rental had popped up in this valley that allowed pets. And in the Bitterroot Valley where we are, which pretty much starts just south of Missoula and then goes all the way down into Sula,
Okay.
almost to the Idaho border. But the valley, if you're lucky, has maybe 10 rentals in the whole valley that are 3 bedrooms. There's
Wow.
not many, and that's an hour and a half drive spread, and not talking width wise either. And so, not a lot of rentals here.
Yeah.
Often very expensive due to a lot of Californians who've moved to the area. From the TV show Yellowstone, which is filmed here, nowhere near
Really?
Yellowstone. It's
Oh my
filmed five
gosh.
minutes from my house,
What?
and so that brought people here. COVID brought people here, and so
Right.
Montana, sadly, poverty with a great view. Right, this is a state that was so affordable to live in, and now it is the number one most out of reach state for home buyers,
Wow.
because there are no entry first time homes in terms of like something under 200,000, like or three. They don't exist anymore,
Oh
sadly.
my
And
gosh.
fortunately, we are in the place. Once we moved out here, we bought this year. I've had a successful few years, and so we were able to buy a house, and we live in arguably one of the most beautiful canyons in the area. And I'm right now staring out, kind of all I can see is pine trees and part of a mountain. But if this was 2 months from now, I'd be looking at elk. And so
Wow.
really just found the most perfect place. And I guess why Montana, this long winded story, the mountains is where I'm most at peace. And
Sure.
so that's where I physically feel the best. I mentally feel the best. And I've been a huge advocate of getting veterans and really anybody who, is dealing with their own things into the mountains, onto the water. And
Yeah.
the dry air here doesn't flare up my health issues. And so that's, a big benefit, but it's really the mountains is just where I'm most at peace. And as my wife always said, if it wasn't Alaska, it'd be Montana.
Yeah, that's amazing. A great story. I've never been to Montana, unfortunately. It's always a place we've wanted to go. I'm not a big fan of snow. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Indiana, and we had a lot of snow. I've spent a lot of time in the Northeast, a lot of snow. So we live
Yes.
here in South Carolina now, and we still get snow. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how that happens, but yeah. But I've always heard Montana is beautiful, and it's always been a place we want to go. I've never been to
It's a,
Alaska either. We were going to go to Alaska in 2020, and COVID
yeah.
put a bosh
Yep.
on
Yep.
that. So it's another place that I look forward to going. But beautiful, beautiful country, and I think I resonate with the mountains, and because I love to be in the mountains too, and just the fresh clean air, just the peacefulness of it. I can just see why that would be a place that you would want to be. So congratulations for that
Yes.
move. Yeah. So Army, what you grew up in Florida, what made you choose the Army?
Yeah. Really funny. I don't really have a family history of military. I think my grandfather may have been in the Coast Guard. I never met him. My dad actually was an objector of the Vietnam War and dodged the draft.
Wow.
And there at the time there was so many people that did that they really couldn't prosecute all of them, I guess. And so he was one that was given like the opportunity to do another thing, another point of service or whatnot. And he spent his whole career um, uh, as kind of like, what's the best word? Like program directors for, say, foster homes,
Oh,
HIV and AIDS homes.
wow.
And so he's kind of directed a lot of those programs, worked in the social services world his whole
Okay.
life. And so while, I can't say we're on the same page with, with the military and whatnot, if he would have if he would have actually gone into Vietnam, there's a chance I wouldn't be here right now. And so,
Sure.
everyone has their own path. But yeah,
Yeah.
no real connection to the military, no family members or anything outside of my knowledge. My grandfather, who was in, and I was a working photographer straight out of high school, doing pretty dang well for myself. One
Nice.
day I woke up. I don't know what it was. There must have been a movie that came out, or something, a show or something I saw that I just felt that inclined. And I think around 2009, I started considering. I graduated high school in '06, and I think in '09 I was like, man, I kind of want to explore the military. And I had went to the Marine Corps and the Army, and I was dead set on a job. I only wanted to join the infantry. That was it.
Okay.
Um, and so when in the Army, they won me over because they sold me on the I had life experience, being a little older, not straight out of high school, and I could end up going like the CAG route, the Delta route, more into the soft world. And I was like, oh, I
Sure.
ate it all up, and so went the Army route. And I went and down to Maps, did the ASVAB and all that, and they're like, hey, you can do all these jobs. And I was like, infantry is the only thing I want to do. And so joined the infantry in 2010. Got sent to Fort Benning, Georgia for OSIT, and did my training there, and then came down on orders to Alaska, and that's how
Wow.
I got to Alaska and deployed to Afghanistan within 5 months, I think.
Wow.
Yep.
So, how did your dad feel about you going in the army?
Yeah, he wasn't thrilled. My dad was not thrilled at the time. He was married to a woman at the time, and they were living in Portland, Oregon. Both my dad and her are, on the very one end of the political scale that is very anti-military, I would say. And I don't think my dad's anti-military, but anti-direct engagement kind of thing, especially for his son. And
Yeah.
I remember he did say, son, you could join the Coast Guard. Um, and I was
It's
young and
safe.
all ate. Yeah, I was young and all ate up with I guess the war machine propaganda. And I was like,
Yeah.
infantry is the only way for me. And yeah, so he definitely he wasn't for the Army, but he was supportive. It wasn't like he was
Sure.
against me joining the military or anything. But yeah, it was a big shift from what my career looked like. Because I was kind of following his path, as because he had, outside of the social services, a young guy. He was a journalist, and he's a writer now and has several books um
Nice.
and whatnot. And so kind of was following the creative world, and then all of a sudden I was like, nope, shift. And so yeah, and obviously I'm back in the creative world now, and I never really left it during my time in, outside of basic, and training. I still had
Yeah.
a camera in my hand often, and I shot a lot of photos throughout my time in theater and whatnot. And so
Wow.
yeah.
Did they try to get you to be a journalist when you joined the army? No.
No, they had asked what I had done, and I said I am a working photographer. And I think they had maybe said, we do have, MOSs in that world, and I think
Yeah.
I just said, no, I'm not really interested in doing that.
Probably limited too. I would
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
and it is, and they never really pushed it. And I think if somebody who is will who really wants infantry, it's not forced, they're not going to really argue, because they
Right.
obviously need a lot of people in the infantry. And a
Yeah.
common misconception with the infantry in general is like low ASVAB scores of people who aren't intelligent, and the
Yes.
infantry actually holds some of the highest ASVAB scores in like the nation. Like the top 1% typically go infantry. And
Yeah.
um, I think it just it probably is a connection to that primal self, and to a just the if you go back and way back in time, outside of the world we live in now, in cities, and so disconnected from everything,
Yeah.
we were a lot more tribal,
Sure.
historically speaking, and
Yeah.
there's probably something genetically there that calls people to join the infantry.
Absolutely. No, and there's a lot of skills that come out of the infantry. Another misperception about that
Yes.
MOS. We
Yes.
fight that. We use infantry as the example all the time when we're talking about skill sets and how people come out of the military with such a great diverse skill set.
Yes.
But so, all right. So you mentioned getting medically retired. How was your transition? And because I think that's a lot of, I know our listeners go through that. A lot of our veterans go through that. You're medically retired when you didn't expect to be. How was your transition out?
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
And so my experience, it's a very long one. Typically, if I share my medical story, it's about 45 minutes on Cliff Note versions. But
No
yeah,
worries.
I didn't have a great experience.
Yeah.
I went from I was an E5, about to go to the sixth board, and around 4 years, I wasn't some dirtbag. Like was a
Right.
hard charger, doing everything right. To really, my medical issues hit me pretty fast. They were kind of lingering. I got sick in Afghanistan. They were lingering from there, and then all of a sudden they hit hard, kind of 1 month in 2015, and was didn't respond to medication. Was told I need surgery, and had a surgery. Had an immediate second surgery because the first one failed.
Oh my
During
God.
the second surgery, I had an army surgeon sever my vagus nerve. It then led to another surgery, and obviously was found unfit for duty.
Oh,
But all my surgeries were gastro related. So outside of losing a lot of weight, I didn't really look like something was wrong. And so
right.
all of my peers were like, "You're a dirtbag. You just tried to get out of a deployment."
Oh
And
man.
the deployment in conversation was a rotation to Korea. Um, and so I didn't really understand that logic of like that. It's not, I'm not doing anything. It's a training, essentially cycle. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm trying to get out of a deployment to combat or theater where lives are going to be lost.
Yeah.
And I never would choose what I have now, but it was meant to happen to me, and I truly believe that because now I can help others. But
Yeah.
yeah, the process, I felt abandoned by everybody. The
Oh,
VA was giving me nothing but horrible like ratings because my
wow.
case, what I had, the only record we could find with me and the lawyer that was appointed to me was one case from Vietnam, and I think there's a lot. Sorry, there's a lot more now that have been discovered that have had similar issues. But in
Wow.
the infantry, it's kind of like once you're useless, get out of my face. And
Yeah.
I can appreciate that to an extent, but
Right.
some of my friends kind of just abandoned me. And so, actually, when I got out, I didn't want anything to do with the military community for years. And it was one nonprofit I had stumbled across in 2018 that had just started that was taking guys down the Devil's River in Texas, and that's where I had found my healing. The last place
Okay.
on earth I should have been going, middle of nowhere. There's no rescue coming for you. You're hours away from a helicopter. If you
Wow.
can, you'd have to have a SO, like a Garmin. There is no cell service. You'd have to SOS. Last place I should have been going when I essentially was dying, but that's where I found my peace. And I saw
Nice.
someone else was doing that, and I reached out and said, "I need to tell your story." And if I never would have done that, I probably wouldn't be where I am now, working with dozens of veteran nonprofits a year and um, hundreds and hundreds of veterans a year, and having, even if it's just, if I impact one veteran a year, I'm stoked. I hope I
Right.
impact a lot more than that, but if
Yeah.
I could change one life,
Yeah.
I've done my job. So
Yeah, we feel the same way. So tell us about that. Now you're a filmmaker. You're working on these things. Have you met Kevin Costner? Because he's like my dude.
no, I haven't. I've only stumbled across a few of the Yellowstone cast members in town.
Yeah,
And now with the show obviously wrapped up, you're not really seeing many of them. But
right. Yeah. So tell
no,
us
yeah.
about your
So
filmmaking and your work with the nonprofit.
yeah, yeah. So I don't do much work in the Hollywood world. It's not really my thing. Not that I'm opposed to it, but the majority of my work has always been in the outdoor space, and then in the veteran nonprofit world. And so I would go on to say 80% of my clients now are veteran nonprofits, and so organizations. This year had the privilege of I was the director of photography for a feature length documentary following the Old Glory Ultra Relay for Team RWB. And so
Oh, nice.
12 veterans ran from the deck of the USS Midway in San Diego to
Okay.
Washington, D.C., relay style, all while
Wow.
carrying an American flag that flew over combat operations in Afghanistan, maybe Syria as well. But um, 16 days, 1 hour is what it took them. World record to run across the country. Average pace is a 7:41 for the group collectively, which is unbelievable when you factor in the deserts, the temperatures, the
Right?
humidity, the elevation. Um, and you had some guys running sub 6 minute paces, and then some that were a little, maybe had some injuries that were running closer to 8 minutes, even maybe nine.
Wow.
And so I had the privilege of documentary, being the primary filmmaker for that. And what a privilege that was, with the veteran made crew. And you should
Yeah.
get him on here. Kerry Kite, Air Force
Yeah.
veteran, incredible human being. But yeah, most of my clients just end up being, or have now become veteran nonprofits. Project Healing Waters is a huge one of mine. They're a
Okay.
fly fishing nonprofit
Yep.
nationwide. I have programs all over the place, and I work with them the most on pretty much a daily basis. I do a lot of their social media work, marketing campaigns, and then obviously all their films and
Yeah.
photography that's been coming around in the past few years. But it's a privilege. I speak the language. And
Right.
so it's very easy for me to go in and do interviews. And it's something that I've been hired as a filmmaker, um, for a veteran nonprofit once that had a new employee that was leading the questions. And she asked the question that he like know never to ask. And her first question was like, well, what was it, what was it like to lose friends in the war, to
Oh,
kill people, and then to lose your eyesight and like your legs? She asked the three worst questions in one question. I said, don't answer that.
wow.
Um, and so people still ask these questions, and so veterans still have that kind of fear that they're going to be asked that. And I tell
Yeah.
people right off the bat, like, listen, I'm a combat vet myself. It's pretty rare I even ask you a question. Sit down, introduce yourself, and tell me your story. And everyone's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. 9 times out of 10, they just go, they just start preaching.
Yeah.
And every now and again, I'll have to help somebody out, but I I understand it. I speak it. I'm never going to make somebody uncomfortable, and that
Right.
gives such an authentic thing. And I tell people this. I know we're wrapping up time here, but I tell people this. This is so important. Storytelling across the board. People want to connect with people now more than anything,
Yeah.
and we often, especially in the veteran world, we like have the world's worst comparison with others. Like, oh, my buddy, did 17 deployments to Afghanistan as a Ranger bat dude. I did one deployment to Afghanistan. I'm not as good as him. He's had it way worse.
Yeah.
But he'll say, "Oh no, man, like it's not the case," And then support MOS may look at an infantry guy and be like, "I don't do anything. My service wasn't of value." Everybody's service mattered. Everybody's story matters,
Absolutely.
especially on the story thing. Well, our stories may be so different that I can't take something away from you, or you can't take something away from me. You can take something away from somebody else, and you can impact somebody else. And so we can
Yeah.
impact, all of us can impact other people. It's just getting to those people. And so I always tell everybody, like, no matter what, your story matters. And
Yeah.
everybody does have a story, whether you serve 2 years or 33 years, there is a story there. And we all really need to help each other, because veterans, unfortunately, can be veterans' worst enemies.
Sure.
We like to bring each other down quite a bit, and
Yeah.
so we all need to be looking out for each other. We got enough things working against us.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say I have to say I was probably one of those people that felt like I didn't deserve. I served from 79 to 88 during the Cold War. Although I've seen documentaries since then to know what was really happening in the Cold War, and it was pretty scary when we look back on it. But I felt like I didn't serve in theater. I didn't serve, in that arena. And I felt like I didn't deserve to have those benefits. And so
Right.
I was one of those people that felt that way. And fortunately, I have a lot of really good friends, my chief of staff, Neela, being one of them, and her husband, Bruce, who truly made me see. I raised my right hand just like everybody else. I put on the uniform. I wrote the check to say I defend this country and protect our freedom, just like others. And so I finally got my benefits, and I do deserve that.
Yeah.
I also love that we all do have stories, and you don't know what one little thing that you say, somebody's going to register with that. Somebody's going to say, oh, I that's me. And you never
Yes.
know what that is. So you're so right. And we all should tell our stories and get it out there, because if you can help one person, I'm a female veteran. I've gone through MST, I've gone through all these things, and I never used to talk about it.
Right.
But I also became then knowing that if I talk about it, someone else will talk about it and that will help them. Or
Yes.
maybe it'll help avoid it happening, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. No.
that it's
No.
amazing. I love what you're doing. Just amazing. And I was going to ask you what your advice would be to nonprofits about telling stories. So let's
Yeah.
close out with that. What's your advice for
Yeah.
nonprofits to tell their story?
No, for sure. I think, well, really briefly, I'll lead it into there. What a lot of people don't realize, when you factor in, I guess this kind of can go together, but you factor in the topic that everyone talks about, veteran suicides. Everyone, when you picture a veteran suicide, most people in the world are like, oh, he must have multiple deployments. Non-deployed veterans now lead suicides to their deployed counterparts, which,
Wow.
what's the problem?
Right.
And this problem comes down to two things. And we'll track right into what we're saying. Community and purpose are the two things leading depression and suicide in our community, is the lack
Amen.
of community, the lack of purpose.
Yeah.
And so in regards to the storytelling, most veteran nonprofits that exist now, a huge portion of their purpose and marketing is community, bringing people back in together. There's some, sure, that are one-on-one that focus more on the healing, like Healing the Hero would be a great example, that do trauma protocols, of course, but so many, and the majority, are community based. And so marketing to the community, that, hey, we're a tribe, we're better and we're stronger together. You don't need to self isolate, you don't need to go to the bottle. And so I think for a lot of that, you don't need to spend millions and millions of dollars on these marketing campaigns and film. There are people that can do it for a lot cheaper, and quite frankly, you can do it without film. You know, it's the advertising of, we're a community, have some good photos, a decent starting point, and making it easy and relatable is the biggest thing. I see a lot of veteran nonprofit websites that are kind of outdated, out of touch, and they kind of push me away. They're standoffish, in my opinion, and
Mm.
and so you want it to be relatable. And I know there's a lot of veteran nonprofits that are ran by people that are not veterans, which is totally fine. Um, but you've got to have at least some advisors that know the community, bring in some
Right.
past participants or something, people that speak the language, to ensure that marketing and that the language is always on par with the community. And so I
Absolutely.
think, end of the day, biggest advice to veteran nonprofits or businesses that are marketing to veterans is, people want to connect with people, and veterans at their heart, even if you think you're a self-isolator, veterans want to connect with veterans more than
Yeah.
anything. Make that perfectly clear.
Absolutely. Wow. All right. Mic drop on that. That was amazing. So great to meet you, Cameron. So much. So thank you for all you doing and promoting these nonprofits and helping our veteran community. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, Robyn.